Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tracy Stitchison, and I'm National Vice Chair for CAMA. Welcome to the third webinar of CAMA's Next in Agri-Food webinar series. Today, we're talking success with science communications. This webinar series is a great example of living our evolved mandate of representing Canada's entire food system from farm to fork. CAMA is made up of our provincial chapters that work hard to provide the opportunity for members to connect with other agri-food marketers right across the country to grow their skills and their passion for marketing and communications. By being a CAMA member, you can reap these benefits. In a few weeks, on May 11th, is our fourth and final webinar in the series, where we'll be hearing from Sean Sunius from FCC about reconciliation in agri-food. You don't want to miss out that. This is an exciting year for CAMA as we are also launching our 2023 Level Up CAMA conference. So we're going to be promoting the event as often as we can and ensure you have your calendars marked and travel budgets approved. For our Level Up conference, we're bringing together the best of Canada's agri-food marketing professionals for a one-of-a-kind event featuring interactive learning, engaging, networking, and industry recognition of the best in agri-food. The 2023 conference is designed to add immediate value to your professional development and marketing investments. Hear from thought leader innovators like Shane Thomas, author of Upstream, one of the largest primary agriculture influencers, Christian Hebert, with Hebert Grain Ventures, plus Jed Schneiderman, VP and Country Manager for Jebbit. Learn from the next generation of marketers via the CAMA student case competition and engage one-on-one with a potential mentor or partner, clients and vendors in planned one-on-one speed networking settings throughout the day. We're looking for sponsors who want to position their organization alongside the latest in agri-food marketing, and attendees are encouraged to sign up for this premier networking event November 1st to 2nd in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And if you haven't already, follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn and see what's happening across the country and in our industry. I'd like to thank our webinar series sponsors, iNet Media, CABF, and Top Crop Manager. Their support not only supports our webinar series, but also CAMA as a whole in implementing and expanding our offerings to members. I'd also like to acknowledge and recognize industry partners who have joined the CAMA National Sustaining Partner Program for a second year in a row. These inaugural partners are committed to our ongoing focus of ensuring CAMA continues to be a dynamic, credible, and relevant organization for Canada's agri-food marketers and communicators. Our 5 committed partners are AdFarm, AGI, Bayer, Glacier Farm Media, and Real Agriculture. Thank you to these companies for their ongoing support. And finally, a few housekeeping items for you today. Your questions, and I'm sure you'll have quite a few, please type them in the Q&A box on the control panel. We will answer the questions at the end of the presentation. The webinar will be recorded and the link will be emailed to participants within 24 hours of the webinar. We will also be sending you a follow-up survey to gather your input on the webinar today and to obtain feedback and suggestions for future CAMA events. I'd now like to introduce your speaker today, Rob Hannam. As a founder and president of Synthesis Agri-Food Network, Rob leads a talented team to provide marketing, communications, and consulting services to the agri-food sector. He operates with the belief that effective stakeholder consultation is key to the future success of Canadian agriculture. He has worked with more than 50 different groups, sharing his talent for collaboration that has had an immense impact in the industry. He has led boards and businesses to become more effective, impacting the industry as a whole. Rob is also a partner and CEO of Farm Health Guardian, an animal health and biosecurity management software system that helps producers and food companies lower their cost of production through improved animal health and reduce disease risks. And last but certainly not least, was awarded the prestigious Agri-Marketer of the Year award this past November. This award honors outstanding accomplishments in the field of Canadian agricultural marketing. The award recognizes innovative leadership and exceptional performance in facing the challenges presented by marketing in today's constantly changing agricultural world. Rob has a proven track record of developing marketing solutions for the ag industry. Many of his achievements can be credited to his collaborative skills and reputation for bringing diverse people together to achieve success. We're pleased to have Rob share his insights today on communicating complex topics in a compelling way. Please welcome Rob.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Tracy. Thank you, CAMA. And most of all, thanks everyone for joining. And so welcome to the webinar. I'm going to try to make it impactful, make it good, make it worth spending your lunch hour with me. So thank you. Making connections, success with science communications is the topic that I've chosen to speak about. I'm going to share some examples and a framework that you can take with you. It's framed up as science communications, but really these concepts, there's three sort of pillars on the screen, and the spoiler alert is that's the format of the presentation today, that you want to, any complex topic or science challenge or science information, you want to make sure it's delivered in a trustworthy way. Make it trustworthy. You need to tell a clear story. Clarity is huge. And then make it relevant. Make it seem easy to understand and relevant to that person's job or daily life. So that's the format for the presentation today. And a way to do that, I'm going to give you two examples. And as was mentioned, the Canadian Agri-Food Marketers Alliance, we've got both agriculture companies and agencies, but also the food side. We're moving more towards agri-food as members of CAMA. So I'm going to give you an example of a science communication challenge for consumers. So that is a campaign we've worked on with Cereals Canada called What About Wheat? This campaign is aimed to sort of fill the knowledge gap about wheat nutrition. The audience is health professionals like dietitians, registered dietitians, nutritionists, naturopathic doctors, and consumers, importantly consumers. And so that's the focus here. I'll share a few examples so that you with the framework that I've laid out for you. And then the second example I'm going to draw on is related to farmers. So both a consumer example for food and a farming example. Now, if you work in crops in Western Canada, hopefully you've heard of Field Heroes. It's been our privilege to work with Western Grains Research Foundation on this campaign over the past number of years, and I'm going to use it as some examples as we go through the day, or the session, not a day. This is a campaign that enables entomologists, so bug scientists, to communicate the value of beneficial insects. And so just framing it up, those are the two examples I'll use in the presentation today. So if you want to follow along, I developed a little worksheet that you can download and follow along. You could just listen on screen and then download it at the end, or if you want, you can download it now and use it. It's a checklist, and I hope it's valuable for you. So we just developed a three-pillar communications framework for science communications. You can get it at our website, synthesis.ag/CAMA. So synthesis, synthesis.ag as in agriculture/CAMA. So grab it now or at the end, and I hope it's valuable. So to talk about science communications, we've got to sort of start with the basics. I won't cover these today, but in any campaign you're developing, for your company or for a client that you're working with, you've got to start with the basics, which is a solid communications objective and clear key messages. Objective, singular, messages, plural, so objective. Try to have one solid communications objective. We all know of examples where we've got 5 or 6 things we're trying to communicate, and I think you likely learn, or at least I've learned, you can't do everything well at once. Really focusing on one solid objective is at a time for a campaign or a portion of a campaign leads to success, because you can actually move the needle. And if you try and do 3 or 5 things, you may not move the needle. Clear messages is the next piece that's important to have in mind. And when you're talking about science, it's tricky, right? You're dealing with an expert, a scientist, and they've spent decades or their career building up this knowledge, and they want to share everything and all the details. And you've got to sort of pare that back and pare that down and put it in order. And we'll talk about how to do that during the session, but you've got to start with a base of key messages. I like to use a framework, a 3x3 framework, and that's kind of my thing. And so start with something that works for you. And once you've got those two, then you can move to this checklist framework that I'm going to share today. So the first element, the first pillar in this science communications framework is to make it trustworthy. Trust includes being factual, balanced, and transparent. And I'll cover each of those and give you some examples of how we approach it, and some things to think about. The second pillar is about telling a clear story. So a stepwise structure, accessible language, impactful visuals. So we'll cover that as well. And finally, making it relevant, targeted and timely, relatable, and memorable. We all want to create a story that's worth sharing, and trying to make it memorable is where I'll wrap that up. So that's the 3 pillars of the framework. Some of you likely have downloaded it by now, and that's sort of the page 1, and then we can follow along. So I'm going to dive into each of these 3 items and review those. There's a reason trust is on top. Trust is the first. And if I had to say what's the very most important thing, you need to start with trust. And trust is hard fought these days. The battle for the truth starts with trust. The stat I'm showing here is just from Edelman, Canada. They run a trust barometer. You may have seen it, and they refresh this every year. And what I'm showing is percent trust in media sources in Canada for the past year. The first column with the green bar there is traditional media, and the percent trust in Canada is 60%. So it's in the green. But 60 is not very much in the green. So it's the highest number here. It's up 3 points since 2022. And if you look at the numbers below that, in the US, it's very different. Trust in traditional media is 48%. Trust in the UK is 51%. So we're in better shape here in Canada, where traditional media is more trusted than in some other nearby countries. But it's not 100%. So that's something to keep in mind. Search engines, the next column, very similar in all 3 countries. We're at 54% trust of search engines. US is similar, UK is similar. The third column, owned media. So meaning your company's website or your association's website, any media channel that you control. Trust there is 35%. So it's much lower than traditional media. Likely makes sense. And it's very similar in the US and very similar in the UK. And then on the bottom, in the right, is social media. Are you surprised? Not likely. Social media trust in Canada is 21%, but check out the numbers below that. The US, 30%, 9% higher trust in social media as a source than compared to Canada. So quite interesting in my mind there. Media is not always trusted. That's the point I'm making here. We see celebrities held up as experts, and you're all thinking of different campaigns right now with a movie star talking about some diet or something. Social media, it becomes an echo chamber so often, so quickly. And we all, myself included, have a short attention span. So how do you conquer this? How do you bring truth to the complex science or the complex message you're dealing with? Well, let's start with the pillar. Pillar 1, making it trustworthy. So The first point I'd like to make is about making sure the information you're conveying is factual. So if you go to the checklist, I'm just going to run through questions to ask yourself when you're developing your next information piece or tactic or campaign, whether it's a new research project, whether it's a product you've been marketing for years, or some new finding out of a science research paper or from some agronomy plots even. The first step in making it trustworthy is making sure your information is factual. So ask yourself, is rigorous scientific information being used? Are the data sources and references provided, or did you forget those? Does the research and our explanation of it follow responsible and ethical standards? So with that one, there's some judgment involved, right? You need to judge, did we follow responsible ethical standards? The other two are pretty clear. You could just say, yeah, we've got peer-reviewed data, or we've got a third-party science expert, or recommending this or stating this. And yes, we provided the sources and references for those who want to dig deeper. Here's how we approached it with the What About Wheat campaign. The very first thing we did is form a science advisory council. So it currently has 4 members, and we bring in other experts if needed. But as a campaign for What About Wheat, we rely on this group, the SAC, as we call it, the Science Advisory Council, to help us get the information straight and interpret the science and make sure our interpretation and our messaging is valid. So Dr. Alison Duncan at the University of Guelph, Dr. Michael Ganzel in Alberta, Dr. Megan Racy, she's a PhD nutrition who works with our team here at Synthesis, and Heather Mangieri, a registered dietitian from the US. And these are the 4 people that vetted all of the information and helped us make sense of the research to create the nutrition messages you're going to see in the What About Wheat campaign. So that is how we started to make sure the information was factual. And the first task for these groups, or for this group, was to create research topic summaries. So across the bottom, you'll see a list of topics: fiber, gluten, heart health, gut health, diabetes. And we did a deep dive. We, meaning the team and the Science Advisory Council, I'm certainly not the nutrition expert here, did a deep dive into all of these topics and came up with a summary of all the current available research. No one really has time to dive into the research themselves, and certainly many of us, myself included, aren't really qualified to always interpret it correctly. That's where the SAC comes in. They helped us identify the relevant research, pick out the studies that are most important for gut health or for gluten, and then summarize it into quick facts and then the next level of detail in terms of messages. And we're providing those in a summary. Now, these summaries aren't targeted towards the consumer. These particular summaries are targeted towards dietitians, registered dietitians. They're educated, they're well informed about this, but they need help in interpreting it. It's a quicker way. If we summarize it, they can review it, they can click on the sources if needed, and we provided it in short and shareable pieces that they can then use in their practice when they're communicating with clients. And that was how we got started, to make sure we were starting with facts, and we've gone back to rely on this quite a bit. The next piece of making it trustworthy is about balance. So when you're developing a campaign, I want you to ask yourself, is the information we provided in a truthful and objective way? And really just step back from, when you're almost completed, you've got a first draft, you're looking at it, is this objective? Are the spokespeople trusted by the target audience? Is an independent view from a qualified expert included? Do you have that third-party source that provides an opinion or an assessment? And at the bottom, are you prepared to respond to other viewpoints or to address other common misconceptions, and do it respectfully? And I'll make a just a pause here and just say, we don't always do that in agriculture. If we're so convinced that whether it's plant biotechnology or crop production or the way we raise animals according to the code of practice, it's so clear to many of us that, this is the way to do it. If we're questioned, we don't always, haven't always responded respectfully. I'm not trying to throw sand at anybody in particular, but just ask yourself, are we ready? Do we respect others' opinions? Are we listening? And always try to keep that forefront. And that's a way that you can make sure your information is balanced and you're earning trust. In terms of spokespeople, I've got two examples I want to share here on the visuals. Are your spokespeople trusted by the target audience? And the first one on your left is Marilyn Smith. And so with the What About We campaign, we were privileged or pleased to work with her on a sponsorship through her channels. And that started in January. And she is respected by her audience. And she is smart about the topic. And she was pleased to engage with What About Wheat. And you see here, I don't know if you can see it, she's wearing the What About Wheat apron. So it's clearly, a partner and a sponsored content piece here. But the uptake, right, and the level of engagement was 10 or 20 times higher by being able to tap into her network and her credibility than just doing it on our own. So, great opportunity for a win. Another one, or just another example here, is Dr. Megan Racy. And just I'll play a short clip of how we were able to take the research summaries, breaking it into some smaller chunks of information, and then have her share that information in a short, kind of quick way that I hope you'll agree kind of leads people to want to know more or want to engage. And this is, again, part of how we're trying to make sure we make this campaign trustworthy and balanced. Here's Megan.
Hi, I'm Megan Racy, a member of the What About Wheat Science Advisory Council with a PhD in Human Health and Nutritional Sciences. Did you know diabetes affects 1 in 3 Canadians, and there are easy ways you can reduce your risk? Research has found a 10 to 22% reduced risk of type 2 diabetes in those who meet their optimal dietary fiber intake per day. Dietary fiber helps regulate our blood glucose levels after a meal, which in turn helps lower our risk of diabetes. You can follow us for more tips. Hi, I'm Megan Racy.
All right. So hopefully you like that. I've got a few other snippets we'll share as we go through, so you're not just listening to me. The third piece of making it trustworthy is about transparency. And this is huge. And think of the science, the complex but important science we have in agriculture and food, and the messages we want to get out. And ask yourself, is it clear who's behind the campaign? With What About Wheat, we were clear in terms of stating the member organizations that are behind the campaign. So Cereals Canada, Alberta Wheat Commission, Grain Farmers of Ontario, the Canadian National Millers Association. So the trade association for all the milling companies is also part of a group. And that's fully disclosed, loud and proud on the website, easy to find. And that's important. So that's part of what we hope makes this campaign, part of makes it trustworthy and credible. Our funding sources or potential conflicts of interest mentioned, and in particular, when it's a spokesperson, making a presentation or a webinar or something, it's important to mention those and be upfront about it. So there's lots of ways to do this. This is an easy one, but just check before you release your information to make sure you are, because these 3 things build towards trust. Okay, let's move to the second pillar. It's about telling a clear story. I am a logical kind of stepwise thinker, so this comes maybe natural to me and maybe not to everybody. I might be criticized of not being overly creative because I really want to break it down and take a stepwise structure. But when you've got a complex message, it's really important to take this. So ask yourself, is this topic put in context of the big picture? Is the information explained in logical, stepwise format? And is it easy for the audience to understand and then go deeper into the content? And when I think of field heroes, what comes to mind for me is the first few months and years with this campaign, and helping the entomologists who are super smart about their topic. They're really passionate about insects, and in particular, beneficial insects. They're a wealth of knowledge, but they often try to communicate all of that knowledge and all of those findings and all of the intricacies all at once. And I just get baffled. Whether you're a farmer or you're an agronomist, you're pretty savvy about all this stuff, but you're dealing with lots of other stuff during the day as well. So we really worked with the entomologists to talk about breaking their message down, making it, easy for me or anyone to understand, drawing me in through a few small points that we might go, or interesting, and then we ask more, and just letting them really understand that if they unload all their data at once, likely you've lost somebody. But if you go step by step, you're more likely to reel somebody in, sort of like catching that fish and then pulling it closer. Social media training was part of that originally. How do I communicate all that I know in a short few sentences and hashtags? Well, we helped with, hopefully helped with the Field Heroes campaign, making it short, easy, catchy, and then just coaching them on how to deliver that message, whether they're making a presentation in a field day, in a boardroom, or on a webinar, how to sort of stepwise approach with their information as well. Here's Megan again, and a quick example of how we've done a sort of a stepwise approach in a series of understanding food labels.
Food package claims and what they mean, part 1. Source of fiber means there is more than 2 grams of fiber per serving. That can be found in a serving of brown rice or a slice of whole wheat bread. Looking for more ways to add fiber to your diet? Follow us for more tips. Food package.
And when you follow us for more tips, you might have seen in the background, I know it's very quick, but if you do click through, you'll see some key facts, just 2 or 3 bullet points, super clear, short, and then an easy click right below that to get more information, which expands into a paragraph, and the links to the research reports are there. And I really don't expect people to click on the research reports, but knowing that they're there and we're linking right to it plainly helps build trust in, that they can trust the summary of the information. Another part of telling a clear story is just using accessible language. And if you do like a ChatGPT search on how to do science communications, this is what you'll get off the start. It'll talk about easy to understand language or accessible language. So ask yourself, is the language simple and accessible? Is the style and the tone appropriate for the audience? So for Field Heroes, I eat pests like you for breakfast, and that's the Field Hero Trash Talk series. So kind of fun way, and people did kind of get behind this, and we're proud of it. So just trying to make sure it's simple, clear language. Ask your advisor about beneficial insects in your field, fieldheroes.ca. Are the key messages clear and consistent throughout the campaign? And the tricky topic I'm going to mention here is gluten, right? So gluten's a protein. When water is added to wheat flour, 2 plant proteins combine to form gluten. And it's likely for now anyway, the topic that it's very important for the consumers and the dietitians we're communicating to understand gluten. And certainly I talked about recognizing other views. We're dealing with, we're mentioning celiac, we're mentioning wheat allergies right up front, acknowledging that, but also making sure people do understand that there are definitely benefits to gluten as a plant-based protein. It's found in wheat, rye, barley. So wheat's very common in our food today. And it's that unique combination and provides that unique contribution, I guess, to food. So the messages from the social media to the website to the research stories to a one-pager like this all need to make sure they're line up. So ask yourself, are the key messages clear and consistent throughout my campaign? The final piece of that is visuals. So on the last information sheet you developed, or the last website, or the last campaign, how much time did you spend on the words? And how much time did you spend on the pictures? If I think back in my career, I would have spent more time on writing or having writers, great writers kind of support me. And we likely spent less time on the visuals. And today I think it's half and half. Like visuals, really are a key part of the communication. No, it's not like a news flash, that. But just when you get down to it, ask yourself, are the visuals helping me tell the story we're trying to tell? Are the visuals impactful and they're going to grab attention? So here's 4 different examples, a couple for wheat and a couple for science, that I'd like you to think about. And I offer these up as examples. We're all trying to get better and improve in our careers and our work, whether it's the product you're marketing, your company, whether it's a client project and you've got 2 or 3 different things on the go. Just think about visuals and the role. Here's an example. Short clip for the fiber sub-campaign on What About Wheat. These 2 different visuals string together through social media, of course. So we need something quick that helps tell the story and grabs attention. Fiber. Fiber is the answer. Brings me back to high school days, which was a while ago. Here's another one.
Wow. 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 Yeah.
All right. Are they helping tell the story? You decide. Are they going to grab attention? I'll go with the fiber one again, and then we'll move to some plant science examples.
Wow. 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 Yeah. Wow.
All right. Telling a clear story, impactful visuals, part 2. The Pests and Predators field guide was a huge success for us. Who would have known that in 2022, a printed book, there's about 103 pages in this. It's glossy. You can sort of see it on screen. This is the green lacewing spread. It's super well done. We're very proud of this, and the photo contributions to create this and the information. Wow, it's huge. A lot went into this, and it flew off the shelves. We did the initial print run, and it's been, it's gone beyond that. So who knew print was still important? The visuals really help tell the story, and it's worth keeping this field guide. So that's, an example. Print's not dead. There's definitely a place for it. Here's another example where we tried to use an analogy and example that we can all relate to, which is seedless grapes. So this is a PowerPoint slide example. And the audience for this is policymakers. So, could be government officials that are trying to decide on regulations or legislation in their country or their area. It's their job to understand the science, but we're all people. We're all bombarded with information. What's an easier way we can get them to understand this? So here's an example, and I'm just going to read the copy on the right, just so you can get a sense. Oftentimes, I think we try to oversimplify, and that's not my message today. It's important to share the science, make it bite-sized, so we can kind of step through it, but let's not oversimplify it. Let's try to share with the audience, whether consumers or experts in this case, in a simple stepwise approach, so they do get drawn in and they do understand it. In 2018, researchers identified a naturally occurring mutation that gave rise to seedless grapes. This mutation is a specific change of a single nucleotide in a particular location of the genome. This small change, one small change for this nucleotide, makes seedless grapes. So now with this knowledge, plant breeders can introduce this mutation to seeded grape varieties using various genome editing techniques. And of course, we've likely heard of CRISPR, but there's also base editing or prime editing. And so there's lots of stuff packed in here. It's naturally occurring. It's a single nucleotide, so it's one, and the visuals aimed to to show that with seeded grapes, with TCT, CGC, AAT, and then the one below, there's only one letter difference. And that small difference made it seedless. So by identifying that just in 2018, now that can be used to create more seedless grapes in a more targeted and refined way. So that's an example of communicating a complex science example with a tone and level of detail that we feel is appropriate. You be the judge, and an example that's relatable. Here's another example, just a quick one here. Plant genomes naturally have structural variation. When we think of you and I, humans, 99% of our genome, you and I, aligns between us. It's not the same for corn. In maize and plants, for example, in this example, 2 corn plants, 2 different hybrids or varieties, less than 40% of the genome may align. They were visually indistinguishable to me. The plants looked very similar. We've tried to portray that in the graphic, but as part of the slide deck, it was about 8 slides and sort of this information packet that went out about the potential for genomic editing. This was, example. So complex topic, in the flow of it, we felt it fit pretty well and made it more relatable. So think about the images and graphics. We all love to throw in an infographic into our messages today, whether it's in social media or on our website. But just think about what's the best infographic that really, conveys the message. Okay. So the last piece is making it relevant. And so I'll cover these 3 pillars, and then I'll be ready for questions in a few minutes here. Making it relevant, timely, targeted. Do we really understand the audience? And does the timing of delivery for this message make sense for the audience? And the example I'm going to show you is just a field sign. So what's up with the field sign? It's a giant field sign. If you can see it on the left, there's a little piece of material kind of flowing in the wind. That's a cape. It's a Field Heroes cape on the field sign in the field at the agronomy day. The giant sign says, find these beneficials, and there was a large size sort of poster, and you see 2 insects on the bottom left of the sign. And that was the instructions. When you come to this section on the agronomy tour, find these beneficials. And it was great to see the entomologists at these field days say, hey, come on, let's find these. Likely, if you're an agronomist or a farmer, you've likely looked for lygus bugs, or you've looked for corn borer, or you've looked for the bad ones. Have you ever looked for a beneficial insect? Probably not. When you do, you'll find them. So in these examples, the entomologist would say, here, let's go find one. And they'd walk into the field, 2 or 3 people, lo and behold, they would be able to find some of these beneficial insects. It's that aha moment, and then come back to the sign and start to walk through the role of beneficial insects, and that maybe you don't need to spray yet, or you can spray less, or just keeping that in mind. Even time of day might have a positive environmental impact by changing when you're applying or what product and what rate. So I'm not qualified to advise on that, but that's the way we got the conversation going, or the entomologists, I should say, got the conversation going. It's familiar territory for them. They find the beneficial. There's the aha moment with the audience, and now they're drawn in and they're really listening and they're learning. And the call to action was to scan and get a copy of the field guide, so they could hopefully take that knowledge home and use it in the spring. So that's an example of targeted and timely. Now, this isn't hugely scalable, right? This is like hand-to-hand marketing and information sharing with dozens of people, not thousands of people, but quite effective. And we're in it for the long term with Field Heroes. And so this definitely works for the long term. The second piece for making it relevant is just being relatable. And coming back to Marilyn Smith for this example, she is the self-proclaimed queen of fiber. Who knew? She's got a cookbook that's award-winning. I aspire to have her energy. She is great. She's fun to listen to. Her network is huge. People like her. She gets on TV. She's disclosed, of course, this is a paid partnership with What About Wheat. She's visually symbolizing that by wearing the What About Wheat apron. She's in her kitchen. We can relate to this. We've got a kitchen like this, or hopefully, it's a little bit messy. It's a regular stove that you would see. This isn't put on like we might have done, 10 or 20 years ago. This is a real kitchen, a real person. We can relate to her. The information she's sharing is quick, and then you can dig in for more. And there's recipes that I can use, and it's been a great partnership with her. Is the story something people can relate to? In this example, yes. Ask yourself, are there metaphors or are there ways we can make it the unfamiliar familiar? Another example, again, for What About Wheat is a transformational nutritionist, Desiree Nielsen. So Desiree describes herself as a gut health dietitian. She again talked about wheat, and she led off with this little clip, and she said, name a grain that's protein packed, antioxidant rich, and gut boosting. What is it? It's wheat. Surprised? Click here to learn more. And so she talked more about the power of wheat as a plant-based protein. She goes on to talk about it being nutrient dense. Those are complex words, but people, follow along and get it. She talked about it being packed with the same minerals as a serving of berries, and she lists the magnesium and the zinc. Antioxidants, not just for veggies. We can relate to that. And she goes on to talk about the antioxidant richness of wheat, and lots of details. So again, it's great to partner with her as a trustworthy spokesperson with an independent view and lots of detail. And she's great at using metaphors and being someone we can relate to. So the final piece is just making it memorable. And this is, the sometimes elusive challenge we all face as marketers and communicators. Think about your campaign and your work and your last information piece. Does it connect at an emotional level? Is it memorable enough that people will want to share it? So we're going to move into the Q&A section in just a minute here. And so get your questions ready. I'd love to hear from you on this. But that's the 3x3 science communications framework. So make it trustworthy, tell a clear story, and make it relevant. And hopefully the checklist is useful to you to, as a reminder, a prompt when you're building campaigns. So you can grab it at our website, synthesis.ag/CAMA, thanks to CAMA. I was keen to hear about CAMA Level Up coming up in November. It looks like you've got a great lineup for Winnipeg. So before we go to questions, just a final piece here, a final tip about branding. When you step back and you think about building trust, I want you to think about a trusted brand. Whether it's you as an individual, you're building your career, CAMA is hopefully a part of that, or your company and the products you represent, or the clients you're working with right now. Think about brands, personal and corporate. And a brand, what is it? It's an impression created over time through multiple experiences. I want you to take the long-term approach to being and building trusted brands. To build a trusted brand, these are some steps that you can and I hope I recommend you follow. We try to follow them as best we can, and we get better every day. I want you to think of your brand, your personal brand, and your company brand or your client's brand like a bank account. And I want you to make deposits into the trusted brand bank account. So an example, for me and how I carry myself, trying to always, put a little into the bank so I get the positive benefit of the doubt if there was a question or something tricky in the future. With What About Wheat, the Science Advisory Council, and the hard work of summarizing dozens and dozens and dozens of research studies, that's a deposit in our trusted brand bank account. So think about that for yourself and your business. And thanks for your attention today. Let's get some questions going. If you like this content, I've got 2 places to refer you to. One is Foolproof. It's a new book out. I'm just getting into it. Sander van der Linden is the author, and he talks about pre-bunking. And the concept of pre-bunking is inoculating people against false information. And his premise is thinking about a vaccine. What happens with a vaccine we use for livestock or for ourselves? We introduce a small amount of the bad stuff, and so our body recognizes it and builds up a tolerance to it. And his concept of pre-bunking is pretty interesting. I haven't got all the way through it yet to be able to turn it around and share it with you, but dig into there because it's about inoculating our audience with bits of false information in a way that they can recognize it and sort of build up that immunity for the future. I think it could be pretty important for what's ahead of us as a population. And the other one was Quest. It's a project in the UE, so yeah, the EU. So questproject.eu. It's wrapped up now, but their website has some great resources. And one of the pieces that I've actually adapted some content from are quality indicators for science communication. So questproject.eu. Let's get to questions. Bring it on.
Great. Thanks, Rob. I think we've all invested in a little bit in our bank account today with your presentation. So thank you again. As Rob said, please add your questions into the webinar chat and we'll be sure to answer them quickly for you. Thanks for sharing that fantastic template. I know I'm always interested in adding to my toolkit, so I'll be definitely downloading that. Templates are great with the sharing of your 3 pillars, so thanks again. I have a question for you, maybe to get us started. So if you could summarize the differences in your approach when marketing a product compared to communicating a really difficult science message?
Okay, so if I'm an agri-marketer and I've got a brand or a product I'm marketing compared to science, a science topic, let's think gene editing is something tricky, and let's say, you know, my new farm equipment or new ag tech gizmo or software. What are the differences? Okay. So one thing on the science side is I want you to be thinking about the science is changing. It's not just something that, you know, happens today. It's done. We're not learning anymore. We are always learning. Science is changing, and you need to frame it up in that manner. So maybe the features and benefits of your product aren't going to change. This is the offer. This is what it's worth. Here's how many bushels better it is. You've got some facts. Let's flip to the tricky new scientific discovery. There might be something 3 months or 6 months or 2 years from now that builds on that science and takes it to the next level. So there's more nuance. You need to be more thinking about risks or acknowledging other viewpoints. Whereas if you're talking about your product, you know, it's kind of straight up whether you're a fan of positioning or not. It's a little bit more concrete, a little less nuanced. That'd be the first thing I'd say, Tracy.
Okay, great. We do have a question from someone in the group here. Does your guide apply to the ag machinery sector where the science is a little more intuitive for people to understand and there is less perceived risk to the science?
Okay, when you say ag machinery and science, I'm not exactly sure, but definitely if you're trying to communicate how the new technology sort of works, you know, that can be complicated. So again, I would sort of break it down. I think the trustworthy pillar applies to all of us in everything we do, right? So let's start there. So on that one, I'm going to say, yes, it applies. Telling a clear story. Well, yeah, if you come out with every feature for the equipment or the new software or the new autonomous whatever, you've got to simplify it and talk about those benefits, because I think, our farm audience in particular might have been skeptical on some of the new technology and the value. So they want to know those benefits. So maybe really think through the messaging part. I think relevance is likely a bit easier to get to on the equipment side, because the audience loves it. They tend to intuitively get it. So I think the first two pillars are the most important with that example about a new equipment technology.
Okay, great.
I'm not sure if you like the answers, but those are my answers. I'd love a few more questions, please. Bring it on.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Can you describe the process of how you or the team broke out the key message soundbite from research studies?
Okay, if I think so, I'll use the wheat example. The process was to first get the science advisory group to identify all the relevant research. So sometimes there was 3 or 4 studies. Many of the nutrition studies are out of the US. Sometimes there was 12 or 15, a lot of stuff. The next step was to have one of our team members and Dr. Megan Racy, PhD nutrition, work together to do the first cut of the summary, and then bring that summary. Did we interpret these 6 studies correctly? And we've got sort of that initial 2-page summary to the group. And then it was using the group of scientists to try and summarize it to the top 3 points. And I tell you, there was some back and forth. There was topics where there was debate on the science among the group. And that's what science is about. So that took, when you're a marketer, all you need to think about is rounds of revisions, right? There was lots of revisions before we got to something. And in some cases, some of the scientists moved their opinion to say, oh, I see what you mean. And they would go away and study it. So it took a while. I'm not sure if this was what you're looking for, but that's how we approached it. We did a sort of a lay person and a scientist did a first cut summary. We took that to the committee of experts. We got the committee to say, yes, that's valid. And here's the top 3 points. Then we massaged those 3 points into sound bites and saw if they would agree with it.
Great. Thanks for that. Next question. Do you have any tips on making it relevant when your client and your target audience are very different?
Oh boy. So yeah, making it relevant. So when your client and your audience are very different, I don't know how to answer sort of that part. What comes to mind for me is really making it relatable. Like, does this matter in my life? And how does this matter? Because we're all people, right? Whether we are, we're a government official, elected politician, work at a company, like we're people first. So the seedless grape example, there's lots of different ways to think about it, but that's where we've got to start. When you say when your client and your audience are very different, I'm not sure what to say other than like you're building the communication for the audience. Do you really understand the target audience? You likely do. Think about that, but it's for them. It's not for you. So really focus on the audience. If you're having trouble or you're not sure if people are picking it up, then test it, right? And you can test it with your family. You can test it with friends. We tried to do focus groups, and there's all new kinds of techniques to do focus groups as well. But there's lots of ways to test it. And then you just like, does this mean anything to you? And test a few different examples of it. So that's off the top of my head. What I would say is focus on the audience, try to understand, think the seedless grapes example. What's the seedless grape example for this problem or this information? And then test it with a bunch of different people and see if they get it or they don't.
Mm-hmm. That leads well into our next question. It is about testing the messages and tactics. It's a 2-part question here. From the What About We campaign, did you test your messaging and tactics before going to market? If so, how? You mentioned focus groups. And then the second part, did you have to tweak any of your messages and tactics after going to market? And how did you handle this?
Yes. And yes, it's ongoing. So did we test it? Yes, but it's never enough. We always want to do more, but you've got a deadline or budget limitations or time limitations. So yeah, we've done surveys with dietitians, like online surveys. We've done some telephone call discussions. We've done 2 or 3 different parts of market research. With the Field Heroes campaign or other campaigns, it's maybe a little easier to do market research anecdotal, like at a farm show, in a field, at an agronomy day, walking around, testing a few things, right? You go into the agronomy day with a purpose. I'm going to try out these 3 messages on different people and see which one people get, right? So go into that one-on-one situation with a goal in mind. So we did test it. We continue to want to test things. More would be good. More was always better, but you can't get to perfection. At some point, you've got to get it, throw it out there and see how it's received. Some of you likely do sort of A/B testing of different digital messages, and I can't say I'm an expert on that, but testing is good. Yes, we've revised, and we'll likely revise again in the future when we get deeper into the gluten topic, for example.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Another question here. What was your process for identifying and qualifying your expert spokespeople? So those would be your influencers, correct?
Two parts. Science on the wheat example, the wheat nutrition example, Science Advisory Council. We started with a big list. We wanted complementary and we wanted some diversity. And we've got a B list that we're going to go to in the future. And maybe when we ramp up additional research summary topics, we'll bring new people into the group. On the influencer standpoint, the 2 examples I shared are paid partnerships. And so, yeah, there's lots of vetting that goes on. But just like I recommended to you, what's the first thing we did is we checked them out, right? Do they have a trusted brand, history, profile, credibility? What's our read? So we really watched them for a number of months before we approached the ones we think are our best. Again, we've got a list and prioritized at this time on this topic. Fiber, who do we want? We want the self-proclaimed queen of fiber. So that's how we got there. And we're always kind of scanning for the next group or the next influencer that we might need in a future campaign, whether it's agronomy, new ag tech, or whether it's on nutrition.
Another question, how do you begin building trust as a small family business when marketing against multinationals?
Your huge advantage is your story, right? You can relate to people way easier. And so I think you've got a great advantage there. When I'm sensing from the question, they've got, the large company has much more resources, but they don't have your story. So you've got to find ways to tell your story. And digital media today gives you that. It levels the playing field. You've got, with a smart person on your team, or you can likely find a digitally savvy person in your town that can help you with that. Tell your story loud and proud. You are very likely very relatable, and that's your biggest advantage. So play to that. You've got a strong position of trust, I'm guessing, and you're very relatable. So use those to your advantage. And digital helps level the playing field. So that's my response. Good luck.
Great. Well, I think we're just about getting ready to wrap up here. We're almost at the top of the hour. So Rob, I want to thank you on behalf of CAMA for sharing your expertise for us today. In lieu of a speaker gift, CAMA will be making a donation to the Canadian Agribusiness Education Foundation, CABEF. Thanks again to our webinar series sponsors, iNet Media, CABEF, and Top Crop Manager. And thank you to everyone for participating today and for supporting CAMA. If you'd like to learn more about CAMA, go to our website at cama.org, and thank you for your support today.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you at Level Up in November in Winnipeg.
Have a great day, all.